Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode Terry Kirby, Bud Brown, number 43 of the All Dolphins podcast on YouTube. Like, subscribe, download, share, all that good stuff. Also on the Fans First Sports Network, where you get your audio podcasts. Download, download, click, share, everything there as well. And of course, check Omar and my work on alldolphins.com. Today was the last practice before the Dolphins were flying out to Houston for the joint practices this week and preseason game number 2. So first off, Omar, what stood out to you?
Tyreek Hill was very impressive. Reminded me a lot of what he looked like last year. Just absolutely downfield, 5 catches, would have contributed 100 yards, no big plays, but Tyreek was open all day. I'm not exactly sure how he did it, considering you had your number 1 and your number 4 receiver. So obviously Tyreek should get all the attention, but he did it. Tyreek was Tyreek, the cheetah.
You know what just flashed on me, actually, literally right now, I just thought of this. How we had remarked for maybe, I think, every single solitary practice until a couple of days ago, Tyreek would not come out with his teammates when they were stretching.
He still didn't do that today.
Yes, he did today, and yes, he did that yesterday as well. Oh, yes, he did. He was on the field right from the start, doing stretching with his teammates. Is there a correlation to maybe there was something minor he was dealing with?
No, I saw he was out there early, but I remember looking for the orange jersey during stretch, and he wasn't out there, and then he came out, and he was like, oh, he's the orange jersey. So
he was out there because I was the first one who went upstairs inside the training facility at the Baptist Cell Training Complex. Trust me, he was out there at the beginning. And again, the point I'm making is that was not the case for training camp until the last couple of days, which leads me to believe maybe was he dealing with something very minor?
Of course he was.
Okay, well, because I'm with you. He looks right now like the guy we saw last summer, who the defense couldn't cover, who was making 4 or 5 catches a practice, and between 80 to 100 yards every single practice. And that's the same guy we're seeing now.
We saw him one day with the compression sleeve and made a big deal about it, and then it disappeared. I mean, I know when I see a compression sleeve. Sorry for those who aren't aware what a compression sleeve is. It's like a stocking on a player's leg that comes all the way up. When they do wear a compression sleeve, they are fighting something. It's not like an Allen Iverson arm sleeve that he just wears all the time. Players wear a compression sleeve when they're battling something. Dan Feeney's had one on since OTAs. It's never come off. I have a hard time believing Dan Feeney's going to actually play the entire season. So, I think he honestly might actually start the season on IR. Just the way that he looks.
How did we get from Tyreek Hill, like kicking ass?
Compression sleeve speculation.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay. Well, we don't speculate about injuries. I'm going to do a little show and tell here for the folks at home. I have a trigger finger, which actually can get painful, and I have one of these that I slip over the finger, and it actually, the pressure that it creates actually makes it feel a lot better. So there you go. That's a finger compression.
When you're busting your Glock. What do you?
No. It's an old age, a lot of typing type of thing. That's okay. Record keeping stuff. The guys we did not see at practice, Alec Ingold, the fullback, who you like very, very much, again was out. No Keon Crossan, no Braylon Sanders, no Jalen Waddle, who we did not see, unlike Sunday when we actually saw him inside the bubble. Let's see who else do I have missing. Myles Gaskin for the second consecutive day did not practice after a very good performance in the preseason opener.
We also did not see Brandon Jones working for the second straight day, possibly a regression, unless he's just going to be held out this week. Could be.
No, Justin Bethel still we haven't seen him since that injury at the end of the joint practice last week. No Ethan Bonner, the rookie cornerback, and another guy who did not work in team periods, along with Teron Armstead. We don't even have to mention him, was also Kader Kohu. Did not work in team session.
Cam Smith and Braxton Berrios both participated in individual stuff, but did not participate in team periods. And team period is where we really judge whether a guy is cleared to go or not.
Correct. And
For
as
those who don't.
As Omar mentioned, Tyreek had the orange jersey, and if we were to go strictly by performance, hell, he might deserve the orange jersey again. Although I don't recall them wearing the orange jersey in an away practice, like I remember Tampa Bay last year. I don't recall them having one. He wasn't the only one who had a big practice because a couple of guys on defense.
Yeah,
I'll let you go first.
Jalen Phillips and Zach Sealer, both 2 sacks, disruptive. This was really one of the better practices I've seen from Jalen Phillips. This is, I really give Austin Jackson a lot of credit because Jalen Phillips has had a relatively quiet camp. And we all know that he isn't a player who kind of turns it on and off. There's a consistent energy and effort that you get from Jalen Phillips. So that indicates to me that Austin Jackson has improved significantly. Sealer was doing Sealer. As we know and have addressed, Christian Wilkins is not participating in team stuff yet again.
I forgot to mention him. Yes.
Whether this is injury related or this is money related, we don't know, but more than likely it's money related or maybe both.
Yeah.
I did the calculations. I did the calculations.
Go ahead.
And he is conservatively, he should get a new contract with $47 to $55 million in guaranteed money on it, depending on how you structure it. Now he's playing on $10.7 million for 1 year, and $10.7 million is cool. It's a lot. It'll take care of generational wealth, but $50 million, that will create a lot of generational wealth. Okay. And so if I'm Christian, I continue to advocate for my new money.
Okay. We had a Christian Wilkins. Is he doing the right thing? Is it kosher what he's doing? Debate in episode 42 of the All Dolphin podcast. So we're not going to regurgitate and go over the same ground because my position hasn't changed. I'm sure your hasn't either. And I will again make this, the one point I will make is, to me, again, Zach Sealer is the most egregiously underpaid player on that team because he's another guy who's had a great camp. Not a good camp. He's had a great camp.
That's
they were
fair.
the only guys on defense who actually had good days. Duke Riley was very noticeable in practice today.
Mitchell Agude flashing again.
He had
he
had one possible sack, and again, at the risk of repeating myself, there are no official stats. This is the media members who will watch a play, and then the pass rusher, when he gets close to the quarterback, either is going to stop, put his hands in the air, go yay, or change direction so as to not get too close to the quarterback. Then it's up to us to decide whether in a game situation it would have been a sack or not. Some are more generous than others, Perkins. Others are a little bit more stingy, Furones. And then go ahead.
So for Poupart, you need to have a dance and a celebration for him to count the sack. Mitchell Agude got that sack, man. Listen, he's one of those young trending players where I will say this about Mitchell Agude. If you and your family members are paying attention to the All Dolphins podcast, you start busting head on special teams, you'll make the 53. You're so close. You're this close. Right now you're on the practice squad, probably the first player on the practice squad, but that requires you to clear waivers. You want to make that 53, start busting heads on special teams.
Fair. My problem with Agude in terms of his ability to make the 53 is they have a lot of edge defenders. And if it wasn't for the fact that Emmanuel Ogbah had 15 million guaranteed, I'm not sure the Dolphins, let's say if Ogbah's contract was not guaranteed, pretty sure they would keep Agude instead of Ogbah. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? If they could save that money, I'm not saying Agude is a better player than Ogbah. They could save that money. The problem is they got to pay Ogbah that money regardless. So they're not going to keep Agude over him.
Ouch! You hurt. That
Am
hurt.
I wrong? That's all I want to know. Am I wrong?
I'm not. We're not watching Agude play against the same caliber of players.
Fair.
I feel like we don't know if Gude can hold up against the run. You have your doubts and reservations and concerns whether Agba can hold up against the run, and those are fair and valid claims and concerns. As I've said, I think Agba is a misfit for this defense. Today, we watched another defensive lineman put his hand in the ground, work with a starting unit that he's never worked with before. Brother just got here, and I still am waiting to see Emmanuel Agba put his hand in the ground. It felt kind of weird.
Like I've seen a couple of reps with his hand on the ground.
Huh?
I've seen a couple of reps during
in 13 practices.
Yeah, no, correct. And again, we can say this because that's how he himself has said it, and that's how he was used in the preseason opener. He's basically an edge defender / outside linebacker. You go back to Finney quickly. He's another guy who's tricky because Dolphins signed him as a free agent, and all $3 million of the money they gave him is guaranteed.
Yeah,
but I could see
if he wasn't hurt, he wouldn't be here.
You mean if the money wasn't?
If money wasn't guaranteed, he wouldn't be here.
Well, they wouldn't have cut him. They wouldn't. You mean once they make the 53, they wouldn't have cut him. But right now,
yeah.
But I could see a scenario absolutely where he makes the 53, and then Dolphins put him on IR after that, and then reshuffle. This is why when we do roster projections, which I did this morning on alldolphins.com, my 3.0. You have to include Jalen Ramsey on the opening 53, even though like the next day he's going on IR. I will make one point about the 53 and encourage everybody to check it out though for the entirety of it. And I say this because I've seen it in a couple of other places among the Dolphin beat writers. This idea that they're going to dump Skylar Thompson maybe because he had a bad preseason opener or hasn't had a great camp, I think it's crazy. Correct.
Yeah, it's not happening.
No.
One, when you talk to every young player, new player, even veteran players, you hear the level of, man, this offense is really complicated to learn. I don't know what it is, whether it's the verbiage, whether it's the motion, whether it's the hot routes, it's audibles. All you hear is it's very complicated to learn. Skylar Thompson says he's got it. Now, there's no way you're cutting him to add a practice squad quarterback who's got to relearn it, and look at what the situation you were in last year. I believe they didn't have to sign a fourth quarterback last year.
Yeah, at some point they did when Tua and Bridgewater was on here. But here's the other important factor. The new rule, which allows teams to carry a third quote unquote emergency quarterback on game day without it counted against the 46 player limit, only applies if that third quarterback is on your 53.
Yes.
Which is why I think you're going to see most, if not every single solitary team in the NFL carry 3 quarterbacks.
Yes. If you have 3, you're going to carry 3. Speaking of quarterbacks, we have now had a string of 5 days, at least 5 days straight, where the offense has looked lackluster. I'm not necessarily going to throw 6 onto that pile, even though I would not say that they did well today. It was okay. It was not impressive, but Tyreek was getting off. And to be fair to Tua and all the other quarterbacks, right now you have Tyreek Hill and Robbie Chosen. And that's about it. You don't have any tight ends, and you've got some backs. Should be pretty easy to contain, should be easy to take away. Fortunately for Tua, Tyreek was getting off today and really had a very productive day. I thought Robbie Chosen did a solid, respectable day. Other members of the media did not agree, but hey, I thought he had a solid, respectable day.
I'm with you, Omar. He was good.
Yeah, I mean,
I got your back.
I can't, I'm sorry, you can't name 3 other receivers better than him on this team.
All right, not right now, no. Yeah. And I'm with you.
I would argue. It's not just right now. Name Waddle, Jalen, maybe Berrios. Name somebody else better.
Maybe Berrios but he's a different type of receiver. So yeah, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle clearly 1 and 2, big gap, and then Berrios and Chosen would be 3 and 4. I completely agree with you. No question about that. I was going to mention, I actually thought Tua threw the ball well today. No, a couple of really nice downfield throws, and again down the middle. That's his money ball right there. Wasn't necessarily overwhelmed. The backup quarterbacks, unlike Sunday, actually got some work in team period. Not great when in a span of four plays, both Skylar Thompson and Mike White fumbled the snap, though did not have the binoculars set on the exchange. So I don't know if it was the center's fault or it was the quarterback's fault, but not great. Skylar did have the prettiest pass of practice for me. Very, very late in practice, beautiful like floater over the defender to River Craycraft near the sideline. It was really impressive. But outside of that, neither of those had a great day in practice. There was a lot of pressure applied by the defense. We've already mentioned Sealer, Phillips, Riley, Agude. So
we also should mention that Leon Eichenberg did not work with the team today. He was doing the tour to Miami Gardens with riding the bike, exercise bike. Maybe it was a rest day to get him ready for a joint practice, or maybe it was a situation where he's got something that's flared up or something that he's been battling with that might help us understand his 2-week demise, 2-week downslide. So we saw a lot of different guys get in there at the left guard spot. I wouldn't, even if he had worked, I wouldn't have been surprised who was in there at the left guard spot. You already know Isaiah Wynn is in the mix, and you know Lester Cotton is in the mix, and Robert Jones is in the mix. So I'm pretty interested to see how they handle that position rotation, how they handle that position battle during the joint practices in Houston, which we will both be there watching offense and defense. I got the first pick of the last draft, so you now get the first pick of that draft. You can decide which unit you want to watch. For those who don't know, they're going to split the fields, and you're really only going to get an opportunity to watch one.
I'll have to think about it. I'll give you my decision when we get to Houston. I'm not sure right now. I mean, because there's intrigue at different positions, both on offense and defense, because we mentioned obviously guard. And then on defense, we got that safety position. And right now, another guy, we haven't mentioned him. I did not see him participate in team periods. Maybe you did. That's Trill Williams. And if he was out there, I didn't notice him, at all. And that's a couple of things. Mind you, of course, he's coming back from the ACL injury, kind of in the same boat as Brandon Jones, even though his occurred like 2 months earlier. But he has not been a factor. You and I were both really, really high on him coming into training camp. It hasn't materialized. How much of that is because the knee is still an issue and he can't be back to the same physical guy he was? Not sure. But as I put in my roster projection, I once had him as like very solid on the 53. Now, not so much.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We've got a couple of battles at positions that are really clear. They're becoming extremely well defined. For me, you got Tyler Kroft and Eric Saubert for the number 2 tight end role. I am at the point where I think only one makes it on the 53-man roster, and then he's even on borrowed time, because if I could find an upgrade out there on the street, I might take that upgrade. You got Gaskins and Salvon Ahmed, who to me, one gives you one flavor, one gives you another flavor, and it depends on what you want. And for the first time, I got an up close and personal look at Chris Brooks. Boy, is that guy big. Okay. He's listed at 6'1", 223. I wouldn't be shocked if he's bigger than that. He's probably one of the biggest backs I've ever seen in a Dolphins uniform.
Okay.
No, I would put him ahead of Ronnie Brown, and Ronnie Brown was a pretty big guy.
Yeah, Ronnie Brown was a big dude.
I gotta look up how big Ronnie Brown is. Maybe history fails me. Then you got Robert Jones and Lester Cotton, who are battling for that backup interior spot just because Dan Feeney's contract is guaranteed. You're not doing anything there. And to me, one of the interesting battles is the Aubrey Miller and Mitchell Agude. And while that's one outside linebacker, one inside linebacker, I think that comes down to special teams for me. Whoever I feel brings me more value on that unit. And I think it might be Agude because he's got superior size and superior athleticism. And then we've got Brandon Peely versus Jalen Twyman for a reserve defensive lineman spot. Who knows what's gonna factor into that decision, or what Miami can find on the streets? Am I missing any?
I don't see Peely and Twyman as a battle, to be honest with you, because Twyman is kind of more of an interior pass rusher, and I think they need a bigger body as a backup, which is what Peely provides. I kind of think if it comes down to those two, I kind of think Peely has a massive edge over Twyman. The Miller Agude thing, to me last week, as you asked me about those two spots, I'd have told you I think Miller might have been in a battle with Channing Tindall.
Yep.
Tindall's coming off a productive preseason opener. However, although I don't want it to be blown up more than it should be, because while he had 9 tackles, I looked him up, every single one of them, and 6 of those came on plays that gained 5, 6, or 7 yards.
Yep.
So that's great. It's great to rack up the tackles, but if they're 5, 6 yards down the field, man. And then one sack he had came late in the game when Logan Woodside gave himself up, the play where Twyman was flagged for making contact with him. So it's a sack because he happened to be the one closest to him. So again, having said all that, yeah, he's performed better than he has since he got here. I just see in certain places, whoa, Channing Tindall's making an impact all of a sudden, and I kind of say pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, they're unfortunately, one thing that I've learned about Dolphin fans, especially this season, is there's a tremendous overreaction to your draft picks, and even the highs and the lows of overreaction. You know, Noah Igbenogany and Austin Jackson are absolute busts because they were high picks that have not panned out for the Miami Dolphins. Channing Kindle's a total disappointment because he's a 3rd-round pick that hasn't panned out for the Dolphins. The back, Devon Achane, sensational rookie debut. You know, he averaged 2.5 yards per carry because he was an early draft pick. Cam Smith, who I think his praise is justified, had a very productive debut. Exciting rookie to see in terms of a guy who's trending up, who deserves more opportunity. Unfortunately, he busted his shoulder, and so now he's going to be kind of put on ice for a couple of weeks till that heals. But this obsession with rookies and draft picks, man, I guess this is every team, but it's relatively unhealthy. And you're lifting up these young players because they're young. And I could tell you, and I said this, I think yesterday, Raheem Mostert, there isn't a single thing Devon Achane can't do that Raheem Mostert can do that Raheem Mostert can't do.
Right.
And there are a lot of things Raheem Mostert can do that Devon Achane cannot do. Mm-hmm. So stop saying that that Devon Achane is about to become the Miami Dolphins starter, because right now he's probably the 4th running back.
Yeah, but this is what happens when you see those highlights from Texas A&M where he's running past everybody, but this ain't Texas A&M.
Yeah.
What else had stood out at practice? I'm trying to think. It was a lot better than it was Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Sunday was to his worst practice. No, hands down, no debating it.
No, without question. And again, no, and yeah, and he did not have. There was the thing with the practice Sundays, there were a few bad throws. Forget the lack of like a lot of completions. There were some bad throws, like throws that we didn't see a ton of last year. I didn't see those today, and that's obviously that's.
He was okay. It was with the exception of the Noah's interception wasn't on him. And we didn't point out that we're cheating Noah. Noah got an interception
because it came on a sack. That's why I didn't bother mentioning it, but maybe we should. It was a play where I had Zach Sealer again getting to Skyler, and Sealer stopped his rush, so Skyler was able to continue the play, and then he threw it, and Noah picked it off after bobbling it, and then might have been another pick 6 because he had nobody in front of him again.
2 straight interceptions on days for Noah, 2 straight pick 6s, I believe. I mean,
yep.
At some point, even Austin Jackson, who I think he had a down day today, but he's a guy that's stepping up. So is Noah. I have never seen this level of reclamation projects in Dolphins history. I think the biggest reclamation project I've seen is Jason Allen. And that was when he got moved from, was it cornerback to
Here's the
safety?
safety or the other way around. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think he got moved from safety to cornerback, actually, I believe. And you're absolutely right. It's like the light came on and no, and again, some guys just don't have the feel to play a certain position. And Noah didn't have the feel to be a man-to-man heavy corner, pure and simple.
Yeah.
It exposes every weakness he has as a cornerback, whereas zone minimizes those. So it's perfect. And I think both you and I, we were asked right now, who's the starting cornerback opposite X on opening?
No question is Noah.
Yeah.
No question is Noah. I can't tell you who's the starting strong safety opposite Javon Holland.
I'd still be inclined to believe right now it'd be Deshaun Elliott.
I would be inclined to say it's Deshaun Elliott too, but I think it should be the Elijah Campbell. I think he should get an opportunity. Now,
correct. That's the
what
battle.
he does with that and the dominoes that it has on the rest of the team, probably don't feel comfortable with that, because if you make him a starter, then you can't use him as a gunner. He's probably more valuable as a gunner. Because if you take him off gunner, it might get ugly.
Well, if he's starting safety is more valuable than a gunner. Sorry. I mean, one's a 65 snaps a game and compared to 15. I mean, that's no. And I understand your gunner might have more impact on the punt return than your strong safety might have on the overall defense. I get that, but I think the number of plays also counteracts that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's like the Tyreek Hill of their special teams.
Whoa.
You take him off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be in trouble.
Yeah. No, not sure I'd go quite that far. What else stood out from this practice? As I trying to look at my notes, I think
we didn't see a lot of action. Jeff Wilson got carries and touches and looked pretty productive. He'd been battling a hand issue and was back on the practice field. It looked pretty solid. I still would say he's the number 2 back, and it's going to be interesting to see what he adds to this offense. Sometimes you see him, it's like there's a consistency issue there. Sometimes you see him, or maybe it's the plays and the packages that we're working on where he has an impactful day, and sometimes he just doesn't have an impactful day. So that was one thing. To me, I left practice really wondering and worried about the receiver unit, because clearly we're not going to be playing Tyreek Hill 30 snaps against the Houston Texans. But during these 2 joint practices that are upcoming on Wednesday and Thursday, what the heck is the offense going to look like without Tyreek Hill?
No, I'm with you there, but I think the bigger picture here is when's Jalen Waller coming back?
Oh, that's not anytime soon.
Well, it's not anytime soon. The start of the regular season is not that soon either. It's in 4 weeks. So
sounds about right.
Okay, well, if they have Hill and Waddle, I mean, I think the offense will be fine. I mean, it's
okay.
We mentioned Chris Brooks. I didn't want to say this, though. We mentioned Chris Brooks. I was disappointed. I don't recall seeing him in team periods today, and I want to see more from that guy because I definitely think there's something there.
You're going to see more from him in the exhibition season late in the game, because he's not getting snaps during practice, and you know that.
Well, he got one when he had the 95-yard touchdown.
Yeah, it was one of 2, and it was the first day we'd ever seen him get snaps.
That would be one of them. And wanted to mention the tight ends. We saw Durham Smythe actually was fairly active today, as you start laughing and roll your eyes a little bit. Look, Durham Smythe does his job, fills his role. He is what he is. I mean, it's like, let's accept the fact. And again, this is like, and for anybody who thought the Dolphins offense would be tight end centric because they had George Kittle in San Francisco, Well, they don't have George Kittle in Miami, and they also don't have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in San Francisco. All due respect to Deebo Samuel.
That position is one of the positions. I've got 4 positions where I'm scouring the waiver wire to try to get myself some help as a Dolphins team. There will be 1,100 players released. On what day is the release date?
August 29th, 2 weeks from tomorrow.
August 29th, 2 weeks from tomorrow. There will be 1,100 players out there on the market. You can put waiver wire claims in. If I'm the Dolphins, I'm putting at least about 5 claims in, hoping that I get 3 guys. You need a tight end. You need an interior offensive lineman, because I'm not sure it's good enough. You need a defensive end or a defensive lineman with a little girth that you can possibly put ahead of Emmanuel Ogbah. And you need some inside linebacker help. Let's be real about it. And hopefully he's a guy who can help you on special teams.
Okay, can I make a point about waiver wires though? And I have this discussion every year.
Please do.
Because I did the research one time. Guys who get claimed off waivers after the final roster cuts, generally speaking, don't wind up having a major impact on the success of that team during the regular season.
Okay.
Because as always, there's a reason they got cut.
May I add a
yes, you may.
To your commentary? You know who's the last waiver wire guy who's made an impact on the Miami Dolphins? Elijah Campbell.
Okay. Can we be honest? We both like him for his potential and his possible contributions. Would you call him an impact player?
As a gunner, he certainly is. He's probably the only reason you have a respectable special teams. And special teams.
When were the special teams respectable? Certainly not last season.
Touche. Well played. He's the only reason. Let me correct my statement. I would withdraw that statement and submit a new one to you. He's the only reason you don't have the worst special teams unit in the NFL.
Okay. And my point is, I don't want to dump on anybody, but I always get this, and it's like if they sign a player in August, September, October, November, whenever it might be, who just got released by a team who might be a bigger name. I remember this when Antonio Callaway got released and the Dolphins signed him. And I know a lot of fans were like, whoa.
This is
going to be a major addition to our passing game. And I'm like, whoa, simmer down. There was a reason he was available, and lo and behold, they didn't do anything.
Because he was a knucklehead.
Whatever but there's the reason. And I'm sure, and maybe at some point I'll go back and do the research again, but it's unrealistic to expect guys. And actually 2019 would be a good time to look. Remember the Brian Flores' first year when they went like this through the roster, and it was one waiver claim after another. And I think they might have picked up like 6 guys the day after final cuts, technically not final cuts because
they signed a couple of them too. Yeah.
But I don't recall any of them like making a major impact. And that's the point I'm trying to make. So this notion that the Dolphins are going to fill holes off other teams' rejects.
But you are at the point as a team and an organization where you have to acknowledge your depth is troublesome. It's not good. You are there, right?
Correct. But this is where you go after the older guys who have stayed out of camps, who have some pedigree, such as Akeem Hicks, such as Dalvin Cook, if that's the direction you want to go, such as maybe Cameron Brate. I don't know what his physical condition is, to be honest with you, but he's somebody. And this is off the top of my head. Such as I know Dalton Risner is a guy who's been mentioned a lot. But again, for me, this is the type of guy who actually could come in and help out more than somebody who you just claim off waivers.
I want some young depth. I want some young players with some cheap salaries. So I'm going to be aggressive on the waiver wire. I think that you have to replenish your roster talent somehow, some way, and claiming the Noah Igbinogheni's, a guy who could potentially be cut because he hasn't lived up to potential or expectations, or Channing Tindall, a guy who hasn't lived up to expectations, and trying to have a reclamation project there. I think that that's the best approach to go. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but we all know Akeem Hicks ain't signing here for a minimum, and I'm not giving him $4 million and taking away my opportunity to sign Robert Hunt or Zach Sealer. What does it look like? You've got Zach Sealer making $2.2 million, and here you go signing Akeem Hicks to $4 million. If I'm Zach Sealer, I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Hold in time. Hold in time.
Yeah. So, I think
that's the other side of the equation, and that's a very good point you bring up. So one for you there.
We keeping score now? I'm sure the fans are. It's when you look at this roster, and I've said it from the very beginning we started doing podcasts, it is top shelf and piss poor beer and liquor. And you need way more beer and liquor to keep this party going. And I don't see any of it on this roster. I'm even at the point where wide receiver, maybe somebody's out there, I claim that guy too. You don't have a backup fullback. You need to go get one for your practice squad in case something happens to Alec Ingold. What right now, Elijah Higgins is your fullback, Eric Saubert your fullback. Like that's not gonna do. That's not gonna pass the sniff test to me. And we all know in the NFL, guys get injured every single week, and the next man up has to really step forward. And at this point, there are probably two positions on this team where I'm comfortable with the depth, and that is quarterback and running back. Everything else, I'm not happy with it, depth-wise.
I'd say the depth at cornerback is good. It's just being tested very early. I mean,
you just had 5 claims.
I understand, dude. I understand that, but I'm saying once you started camp, you had Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Howard, Nick Needham, Noah Monogany, Cam Smith. Now you've added Eli Apple, who's a good, solid veteran. I mean, they have a lot of corners. The problem is they've gotten a rash of injuries already at that position.
Never have too many.
Have a lot of bodies. I concur, but I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that waiver wires is the way you're going to beef up the depth on this team.
No problem. I don't disagree with you, but I also will point out, we sit here and we haggle about who do we cut and try to stash on the practice squad. I can't remember a guy cut that I said to myself, gosh darn it, damn it, the Dolphins made a bad error on that one. Like, just doesn't happen.
No, correct. And that's the other side of it. Because I know fans sometimes will correct, well, how could you let him go? And they don't wind up doing anything anywhere.
Yep.
Preston Williams, Lynn Bowden Jr. being two examples. I mean, those were like kind of names a little bit. They haven't done anything.
A little bit. They were names.
They were names. They haven't done anything since they left. Solomon Kindley. Solomon Kindley. Haven't done anything. Okay, we got to wrap this up. We're going to have another podcast tomorrow because that's what we do. And then we're going to be flying out to Houston tomorrow.
Covering joint practices.
You
know where to get your good stuff. All Dolphins for the podcast and alldolphins.com on the website.
What Omar said. Omar, until we do this again.
Until we do it again.